But first, big news today. The Federal Reserve raised the key interest rate by 0.25%. This is only the second time in a decade the rate has gone up. To get into it and what this means for you, the real person out there, I've asked Matt Gulbranson from Callahan Financial to give us the lowdown. Hi there, Matt.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. First of all, give us the 411 on, what does this mean? We're always hearing about these possible rate hikes, and then it doesn't happen. But here we actually have one.
Absolutely. Well, what the Fed funds interest rate increase today does is it really is kind of the baseline that sets the table for how interest rates are set basically for everything. So that's simple as what your savings account at the bank is paying or what you might get for a interest rate on a mortgage, or if you're a business owner trying to borrow money, or even in the worst case, a person who is putting money on a credit card. All of these have a direct impact on what happened today with the Fed funds interest rate increase.
All right, so this happens today. It's announced. How soon does this go into effect?
Well, it's immediate. And so what happens is that there's a lot of different measures of what the Federal Reserve is going to do. And as I tell clients all the time is that the markets are very anticipating what may happen. And I do not think what the increase today was really to anyone's surprise. It was pretty much 100% prediction that it was going to happen. So the events itself really are kind of a non-event because I think the markets already thought it.
All right, but let's go through some of the areas where real people out there could be affected by this, even if it wasn't that big of a surprise to experts like you. I'm talking with Matt Gulbranson. He's owner of Callahan Financial. You can talk with him, too. The text lines are open, 81807, or give us a call, 866-989-9226. If you're worried about loans, your student loans, maybe mortgage this year, Matt may have some answers for you. Let's start with the house market. Okay. So a lot of people were trying to buy houses, whether it's first time, second time, whatever, before this hike went into effect. Now it's in effect. How will this affect overall mortgages?
Well, right now it shouldn't have much of a major implication because I think the mortgage market had already anticipated this as well. And so we've seen, not by very much, but mortgage rates have come up slightly. What I think the real telling will be is that when the Federal Reserve made their announcement today, when Janet Yellen spoke, is she gives a lot of commentary. And for people like myself, we're actually looking more about what she says than the action itself. And they anticipate really doing about up to three increases next year. So that could mean we might see 1% or more interest rate as far as interest rates higher next year. So for that person that's wanting to go out and buy a house, you're not going to be able to get as much house for your dollar on a mortgage payment basis because you're going to be paying more in interest.
And to give people some perspective on this, the average rate for a 30-year mortgage has been hovering at record lows since 2008 as the government was trying to help turn the market around. But they've already been trending upward even before this increase today. So, the bottom line on this, Matt, we might not see that immediate effect with the mortgages, but who, is it that first-time home buyer that's most at risk, or do you think the economy is moving along at a good enough pace where not too many people are really going to feel the effect of this when it comes to the house market?
I think you have to segment it a little bit. It obviously is going to have some impact on the housing market. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you're saving and you want to get that first home, and obviously money might be a little bit tighter for you getting that first home, every dollar counts. And so now all of a sudden, if you're spending $50 to $100 more a month in interest payments, that's going to change the amount of house you can afford. So that's definitely going to affect that first-time home buyer group, but it's really going to affect everybody. And so what we may see from this, and I wouldn't be surprised or shocked by this, is that if this starts to slow down the appreciation in homes that we've seen over the last few years, especially here in the Minneapolis market, is that it's been amazing how much homes have appreciated over the last few years. And if we start to see more rate increases over the next year or two, that's definitely going to probably put some pressure on that. So that's definitely one group. But I think it is maybe a little bit of a relief for the savers, for that person who is conservative, been putting a lot of money in the bank, buying CDs. They really haven't been rewarded at all for doing that. And now with rates starting to go up, they should hopefully start to see a little bit more interest paid to them on a regular basis.
Right. So the people who are savers, which is not, as we've learned, the majority of the country, right? But the
No, not at all.
The people who are savers are maybe one of the big groups that's seeing a benefit from this, especially, and get into this a little bit, Matt, people who are approaching retirement. What does this mean for them?
That's a great segue. Is exactly what I was going to say. I think this is positive. And so there is a little bit of a generalization that as people get closer to retirement, they tend to become more conservative with how they invest because they want to make sure it's there for them and they don't have as long of lifespan and all those types of things. And I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, but that's kind of a generalization that a lot of people tend to follow. And so now all of a sudden, if you're a more conservative investor, you might be able to get a little bit more interest for the same amount of risk. And so if you're needing that to generate income for you in retirement, this could hypothetically be a positive thing for the baby boomer and those people approaching retirement.
I'm talking with financial professional and owner of Callahan Financial, Matt Gulbranson, and you can talk with him too. If you have any questions, give us a ring, 651-989-9226, or text 81807. It is the end of the year. What are your questions for Matt as you're getting your taxes ready, as you have to make some of those big purchases, all of those kinds of things? Speaking of big purchases, Matt, separate from houses, how might this interest rate hike affect, people are thinking of buying a car at the end of the year or major appliances?
Well, it's definitely going to affect it. I don't know that we'll see it instantaneously, but I think what we're seeing as the events of today, because this is only the second rate hike in a decade, is that we maybe start to see a pendulum shift of rates starting to go up on a more consistent basis. And so what the whole purpose of low rates were over the last decade were to encourage us to do all those things, to buy houses, to buy new appliances, to buy cars, because we could borrow money so cheap to do it, and it worked. But now as we start to shift that other way, I think what will be telling, and that's really why we're raising interest rates, is that the Federal Reserve Chairman Yellen and the people that make those decisions are saying that our economy can handle these types of interest rate increases and still keep up with the demand. So I hope they're right, because I don't want to see the economy deteriorate at all because of these types of events.
Another big area that I'm sure many of us out there are concerned about is that credit card debt. What can you tell us about? I mean, it kind of scares me as to what some of the companies will do and maybe even hike it up even more, sort of blaming it on the Federal Reserve raising the rate.
I hope not, to be honest, but that could be an out for some of them. What I would notice is that when you look at credit cards right now, is that it's already a very competitive environment to get your business there, and so I don't think that we'll see too much change in the rates that they're charging anytime soon. I think we need to be seeing, rates 2, 3, 4% higher from here, where we would see a dramatic shift in how credit card companies charge. But I could be wrong. But I think at the same time, that's a pretty competitive market. And so I think you're going to see rates stay pretty similar there, at least in the next year to 2 years.
All right. So, Matt, you said that this was expected by most people, and it probably, didn't affect the stock market so much today. But what about stocks, and what about people who do have investments in stocks? Many people do, even if they have mutual funds, made up of a bunch of stocks. How does this kind of event affect the stock market and people investing in it?
Well, as you said, it didn't have much of an effect today. And what was interesting about what Janet Yellen said in her minutes today were that she anticipates 3 rate hikes in 2017. Excuse me. So she feels that the economy is gaining steam. She feels unemployment is strong. She also made a comment that our economy does not need stimulus to hit their unemployment targets. And that was really something that President-elect Trump made a big point of, is that create a big stimulus package to get the economy going again, create better quality jobs. So I think this would be a little bit of a cat and mouse game, because that is a little bit contrarian to what he's trying to accomplish. So overall, with the markets, I think it's positive. I mean, if we're raising rates, that means the economy's strong. And so if the economy's strong, the stock market should respond well because of that. That's kind of the conventional wisdom with that. But we're really sort of at unprecedented times because we never really dealt with this before. So there's no real perfect playbook on how do we invest. So what I'm telling clients, and I would advise everyone listening, is don't really change anything and stick to your plan. There's always going to be some short-term events along the way that could derail or cause you to think differently, but I do not see these events as a reason to change how you have been investing.
Yeah, like don't do anything drastic just because of
Exactly.
this today. Yeah. Well, because we have you on the phone, we're winding down the year, getting ready to start 2017. You are a financial professional. What kind of advice can you give listeners tonight about some smart things to do as they wind down the year? And then second, some ideas for 2017.
Absolutely. The first thing I would say, and this is really kind of a New Year's resolution type thing, is try to hold yourself a little more accountable. One thing I see the most successful people doing is really following their money closely, meaning setting a budget, having consistent habits of saving, building, putting away money on a more consistent basis to their retirement accounts. So, if you're a person that sort of says, I'm going to make a couple of new resolutions for each year, I would say I'm going to make the resolution to be a little bit more accountable to what I'm doing with my money. So just that in general, I think helps a lot. From a year-end standpoint, really the big thing that jumps out with people is taxes. And so I'd encourage you to look closer at your retirement accounts. If you're someone who has some additional funds, you can do things like a traditional IRA or Roth IRA to put a little bit more money away for retirement. I would really look closely at those things and try to lower your tax bill going into 2017.
Yeah, so any weird tax things or loopholes or things like that are maybe new for 2016 that when people are getting taxes together, they should be thinking about?
As complicated as taxes have gotten, there really isn't that much different. And part of the way the tax code is the way it is today is to avoid the loopholes or the fancy accounting that a lot of people try to do, especially for the average person like you and I. So no, there really isn't. I think it just really comes down to taking advantage of the simple things like putting money away consistently and taking advantage of the deductions that are available to all of us, and you hopefully get the results you desire from that.
Matt Gulbranson is owner of Callahan Financial. Matt, if people want to reach out to you directly, is there an easy website they can go to?
Absolutely. You could reach out to us on our website, which is CFPCORP, so cfpcorp.net. So you can see a little bit about who we are and the work that we do. There's also in the news section that shows some of the different interviews and commentary that we've done, as well as some videos we've created. So absolutely.
One of the things that I say, I know a lot of people try to do it on their own, but I always say about financial professionals is this is what you do, just like realtors. That's what they do. And sometimes when I meet with my financial advisor, just even talking with her, just being in her presence and just talking through things makes me feel calmer about planning ahead.
Well, it sounds like you have a good financial planner.
I do. She's terrific.
That's awesome. But you're right. As much as we need to know the numbers and the tax rules and investment strategy, all that type of stuff, at the end of the day, my job is kind of pointless if I can't build trust and build good relationships where I can get people to commit to things longer term. And so in some respects, what I do on a daily basis is a behavior psychologist to help them, making sure that they're thinking about the bigger picture and they're not trying to make gut check reactions on short-term news, because it's really difficult with the media today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much, Matt Gulbranson of Callahan Financial, for walking us through this rate increase. It does end up affecting us even if we don't see it right away. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
You too.